Tell me one of the most important things that you wish you had known in business. And he said, the one thing I know now that I wish I'd known when I got started is the SPV. That's special purpose vehicle. It would have saved me tens of millions of dollars. The SPV is a special purpose vehicle, and it's any limited liability entity that you use for a deal. So it's a fancy name that attorneys can say it's a special purpose vehicle. Please pay me $10,000 to form it, or you can go to Biz Filings and do it for 15. It's just a limited liability entity. The reason you want to use it is that it isolates liability from any of the deals that you're doing. So when we're doing these deals without having to come out of pocket, we might, I'll tell you later, we might do due diligence after we do the deal. We might do due diligence after we do the deal, but we might not care that we're doing the due diligence after the deal because we wanted to get the deal done quickly and we were able to move faster than the other people that maybe were competing for the deal, and it's isolated in SPV and we didn't come out of pocket with any of our own money. If we can do a deal like that, then we can do the DD after, right? So, when to form it? Immediately today. If you don't have one, you should always have an extra company or 2 or 3 lying around to do deals with, because you might have to move really fast, and sometimes even the express formation stuff takes longer than you want it to. And also, if you're doing funding with your SPV going on the hook, a yesterday formed SPV doesn't look really good. How much does it cost? Use LegalZoom or any other cheap formation. You do not have to get an expensive attorney to do it, but I don't give legal advice. I'm not even here. And so you should use an attorney all the time. Now, one deal group per LLC. So if we're starting like a roll-up or something, it's one SPV. The first deal goes in there, and then the tuck-ins still go into that SPV. Okay, what to buy? Assets versus equity. Why would we want to buy assets, not equity? Liability, right? There's all kinds of things that if you buy equity in a company, whether that's an LLC or stock in a corporation, all of the baggage and skeletons in the closet come with that. When you buy assets, that generally does not happen. There are rare circumstances where assets will carry liabilities, but usually not. So the kinds of things that you might find if you buy equity and don't buy assets is that there are secured or unsecured payables or other debt that wasn't disclosed that now you have to take care of. There are warrants or options. Remember we talked about getting warrants or options? Maybe they forgot to tell you, and then somebody comes up and goes, hey, by the way, glad you bought the company and built the value. I've got an option to acquire 20% of it. It's still valid. Right? That's not fun. Maybe somebody has a phantom equity deal, an employee that left and the seller didn't want to tell you about it, and the employee wasn't talking and your due diligence didn't reveal it. Maybe there's taxes or tax liens. Hopefully you did a tax lien search, but maybe there's threatened, pending, or even latent litigation, like the litigation didn't exist at the time that you did the deal, but it was a liability that was incurred prior to the deal. Now you can contract and say that's the seller's responsibility, but what if the seller blew all the money or doesn't have anything to pay the full amount of the liability? And employee or labor organizations liability as well, especially in the Me Too era. You'll have somebody who has a claim and the company that you buy, they don't think is doing that well now, and then you buy the company in your company and you have lots of assets, and then that person decides that they were offended and they need to have redress. Okay? Everything that happened in the company before you arrived and everything that happens when the company afterwards comes with equity. So, not to give you a lesson in accounting, but just to give you an idea of types of assets to think about. You can think about assets in form, in liquidity, and use. So at the top, there's categories. There's tangible assets, which are things you can get your hands on. Usually you can sell those or you can carve them out of the deal. There are intangible assets like brand, goodwill, copyrights, trademarks, and stuff. They frequently have no value outside of the person that owns them, although they sometimes can be licensed or sold. That would also include things of value like social accounts and traffic assets. So those do have value. But just so you know, those are things that you might be able to finance on the left or carve out on the right. Then from a liquidity standpoint, you have current assets and fixed assets. Fixed assets are harder to sell. Current assets can be liquidated relatively quickly. So we like current asset companies, current asset rich companies, because it gives us more stuff to raise money with. And then you have the assets that are used in operations and the ones that aren't. So the ones that are used in operations, you're going to want to review and see, do you need them? Or can you use them also to finance the purchase of the company? And the non-operational ones, we can sell all of those because they're not used in operations. So we can either carve them out and let the seller keep them, reduce the purchase price, or we can finance them, fund them, sell them, license them, whatever. Based on use, all of these non-operating assets like money market funds and securities accounts and commercial paper and all that kind of stuff, that excess cash is included in that. That I can just carve out of the deal. Then with the operating assets, those are yellow because I might be able to sell them and raise money, or I might need to keep some of them or all of them to do the deal. And just kind of running through those, this is the process. Like, that's kind of how I like to think about it. So I'll look at the brand and say, do we need to keep the brand or can we rebrand? Is the brand actually important? Is it have independent value, or can I do something with it? Cash and accounts receivable, I only need enough for WC working capital, the gas to keep in the tank to make the company go. Any excess I can spend, take myself, or give to the seller to reduce the purchase price. Are we using the building or not? If we're using it and we need it and it owns a building, we can sell the building and to the seller and lease it back. If it's owned by the business, we can just carve the building out and then lease it back for however long we need it. Raw materials, there's frequently an excess of those of work in process and inventory. Those are all related. You buy raw materials to start doing work to turn it into inventory, and then you have inventory. So 3 separate accounts on the balance sheet. Do you need to keep it, or can you go JIT? JIT means just in time. Just in time is what you want because it lets you be lean and not have to have more of these things than you need, and you can sell the excess or finance it or just sell down the excess inventory. And then supplies, keep what you need, sell the excess. Furniture, fixture, and equipment, people also tend to accumulate too much of that and sell and lease it. They also accumulate too many employees, most people, right? So you want to look at, when you're doing your management interviews, you really want to know, do you need all those employees? They just tend to kind of creep in a lot of companies. It's funny to watch. We have a lot of law people in here. I have seen so many law firms that have so many more paralegals and legal secretaries and everything else that they need to do the stuff that they're doing.